We've got a lot of really good, healing, wonderful Chinese ingredients today. We're really going to focus. There are some Western ingredients, but these are truly, deeply Chinese food remedies that people just know. I eat this, when I have this. So I'm excited to share them with you. Cool. All right. So we got Robert and Yvonne. Hi, welcome. Nice to see you too. Really happy to have everybody here, and we'll get started. Oh, in just a minute. So I have my glasses on and I can see close and far. So it's at that age, yeah. But I do have to share, and I would love to hear your stories as well. If you're noticing changes and improvements, I've been really working on my eyesight and doing the eye exercises video that that we did, and Addie did the yoga one. So combining the two. And I used to go on my walks and I would try and read the license plates on the cars. And I could not read them until I got close, or a sign, and or they would be fuzzy and whatnot. But now, when I'm walking, I can see them from further away. They're really clear. I close one eye and then the other, and they're super clear. So I don't know, has anyone else seen any changes in vision or anything like that? Robert, yeah.
Oh,
Oh, I
was
thought
just
you
trying
raised
to
your
get
hand. I'm
everything.
sorry.
No, but for a long time, I've noticed that when I stretch my eyes, I can see better.
Yeah.
And I'm nearsighted, so I've worn glasses for a long, long time, decades. But I really only wear them now for driving,
Wow.
or if I'm watching TV or something. I just don't bother to wear them if I'm walking around, or
Good.
I'm wearing them right now because I'm looking at the screen. But
Right.
yeah. So I notice like I can focus on words, and they'll gradually, if I give it enough time, they'll come into focus.
Wonderful. That's
Like on
wonderful.
signs.
Good. Super cool. That when you're doing that without the glasses, they call that throwing away the crutches. So that's really great. Anyone else have anything to share with that?
Maybe a little bit.
Little?
Yeah, I'm taking a couple of Chinese herb combinations, and it's been 2 months, and maybe a little bit. Like in the shower, I can tell that it says conditioner instead of shampoo.
That's important, right? I mean, that's a big deal.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I love it. Oh, well, we're going to be learning some recipes today that will continue to help heal your body. And I do have my notes because I have so many different things. So when I'm looking down, I'm taking a minute to look at my notes. I am going to start then, because we were just talking about eyesight, with the goji berry or wolfberry. And the goji berry it's this red little berry here. We've met it before. We had it in some other remedies. This time, however, we're going to be pairing it with the astragalus root, and yours might be bigger and look a little bit more like licorice. It really depends how people prepare the astragalus root. And mung beans. Mung beans are a powerhouse food, incredibly complex amino acid structures. And when they're very kind of neutral to cooling on the body, but incredibly nourishing for yin, even though they're a cooling food. And the recipe for this is you take about a tablespoon of goji berries, about 10 to 15 goji berries, and you take about half a cup of the mung beans, and half a cup, a tablespoon of this astragalus root. And you're going to go ahead and you'll take that with 3 to 4 cups of water. So we'll go ahead and take the water, and you'll bring that to a boil. So we're going to let that, kind of have that come to a boil. You can make sure when you're using the mung beans that you rinse the mung beans first. These have been rinsed and dried, so that's why they're there. You'll rinse it just to rinse off any dust and to also start the layer. If you want, you can also soak your mung beans overnight. If you don't have time for the full 45 minutes of cooking, if you soak them overnight, 20 minutes is more than enough to give you a nice soft bean that you can eat. A secret to when you make beans, and we're just going to let that come to a boil with the mung beans inside. A secret to beans, a lot of people have problems digesting beans. And the reason is, sorry, let me just get a plate for my spoon. They often don't know two secrets. One secret is the soaking. So if you have problems digesting beans, make sure that you soak the beans at least 8 hours and up to 24 hours. That breaks down the outer shell, so the digestive process has already begun for you. It really opens up and lets your body absorb what's good. The second secret to beans, whether this is mung beans, aduki beans, kidney beans, black soybeans, white soybeans, any bean, you skim the foam. When you bring the beans to a boil, at a point within the cooking, you are going to notice that there is this foamy layer on top. Sorry, this is kind of stuck. And you want to make sure, sorry, this is doing something weird. Okay, there we go. When that foam appears with a spoon, or if you have a small or big, this is really big, but a small strainer, like a mesh strainer like this, you can literally just come in and skim the foam off the top. So that will help reduce the flatulence, the hard digestion, because beans have that protective layer, and you want to start breaking it down to make sure that you can get all of the super good nutrients from it. Are there any questions about those bean tips that you guys have? Okay.
How long did you say soak them?
Go ahead. Soak for at least 8 hours, up to 24. After 24 hours, your beans will start to sprout. You can make sprouted beans, and that's wonderful. What you want to do is just keep them on the counter, soaking in water. Change the water every day, though, and you'll put them in a cover, like in a dark place, so it's a stable temperature, and make sure you're changing that water every day. And the beans should sprout by day 2 or day 3. And then you can even cook them as they're sprouted, stir fry, or in some other way.
Can I ask a question? It's a different bean, the lentil bean?
Okay, lentils. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say I had a hard time. I've never cooked them before. So I tried it, and it was a big fiasco because apparently they don't cook well in tomato sauce,
Yes, correct. Very correct.
It was horrible. I put them in a crock pot too.
Oh,
and
no.
It was like on, and then I tried to recook them over the pan, and it was like, oh my God, there's got to be a way to do this with the.
There is. Were they mealy? Did they come out mealy?
No, they came out hard. It was like they didn't even cook.
Okay, what I recommend, I always cook my lentils or beans before I use it in a recipe.
Okay.
I always cook them, get them ready to go, unless it is a specific kachati or Indian dish recipe where they say to keep it hard. But whenever I make them on my own, like if I'm being creative, because you're right, in a tomato base, the reason, and also within the crock pot, it might not have been at a high enough temperature to break down the outer wall of the bean. And you really need to bring the beans, from my experience, and I'm not going to pretend to be an expert on. Is Bhuvana on tonight? I didn't see her. I know she does a lot of. She's emailed me about Indian food recipes. But when you're cooking in a a cooker, if it's a pressure cooker, like a rice cooker, an Instapot, the pressure will get the heat high enough to cook the lentils or the beans. But other than that, because the whole premise of a crock pot is low temperature.
Right.
Um,
So
yeah.
even so, when I tried to cook them again, just on the stove,
Okay.
I probably, I'm just repeating what you said, but I probably should have just soaked them first and then done the cooking, is what I should have done.
That, yes. And did you cook them in the tomato sauce again or in water?
I can't remember if I might have done it again in the tomato, and then I
Mm.
finally looked it up and Googled it, and apparently a lot of people had that trouble with lentils in tomato. And it must be
Yeah.
that what's in the tomato doesn't help the lentil break down, or
May- Maybe my guess, honestly, though, is when you're cooking a tomato sauce, you're not going to let it come to a rolling boil.
yeah, that's true.
You're not, right? You're worried about it gelling, right? It's
Right, right.
solidifying.
Oh, good
So
point.
I think by virtue, I don't think it's so much the acidity of the tomatoes as I think it is the viscosity, right? That you just can't bring it to a high enough temperature and have the
Right,
right,
right.
you
Good
know,
point.
viscosity of the liquid.
Okay,
Yeah, so
okay.
I would try just doing it, boiling them in water, even without soaking. I normally don't soak lentils because they don't have so much of the shell anymore. They've been processed in a way that they cook pretty fast, but soaking will make it easy. You'll soak them, cook them 20 minutes, and you'll be golden. It should be great.
Okay,
Yeah.
thanks.
All right, so let's come back. Our mung beans are coming to the boil. Once they're at the boil, we'll add the astragalus, and then the last 7 minutes that's when you put in your goji berries. You don't want them to cook a huge amount of time. But this recipe is particularly nourishing for your liver and kidneys and your eyes. It's really, really nourishing for the eyes to raise the qi up. It lets that beneficial qi raise up and get all the way to your head, and it just is nourishing for the eyes. There is one contraindication for the wolfberry or goji berry. If you have diarrhea, if you're prone to diarrhea, would not do more than about 5 to 7 of the goji berries, and I would not do it more than 1 to 2 times per week. As wonderful as the benefits are, they can be they moisten, right? They have a moistening effect. So if you've got loose stools, diarrhea in particular, that means there's an imbalance in your spleen, a little bit too much cold. And with the mung beans being cooling and the goji berries, you want to limit that. Now, the astragalus is really great for cooling as well, and for spleen and digestion. This is incredible if you're having problems digesting your food. You do notice that you have soft stools or diarrhea, which means that your spleen is not operating well, then this is good. However, we do have contraindications, and this will all be on the recording as well as the handout. I'll have a PDF for you guys. This is really important not to do it if you have tested and you have a hot constitution or heart fire, any heat anywhere in the body. Don't do the astragalus. Just do the mung beans and the goji berries, because this really will repress. It'll just kind of boost the heat. But that being said, the other contraindication is don't eat it if you're starting to have symptoms of a flu. When you start to get the flu, you want the fever that comes with it initially. If you stop that fever, the body, and again, this is just Chinese medicine, check with your practitioner. This is just how it's looked at in Chinese medicine. You don't want to stop the fever because you're going to drive the virus, the exogenous pathogen, into the body. When we first get a flu and have a fever, we want everything to push out. We want the fever to push out the pathogen. We want the body to release the heat. And we want to have that sweat and fever, and astragalus will inhibit that. So make sure that you don't have that when you have a flu or beginning a fever. Okay, questions on astragalus or on the benefits of the goji berry?
Does astragalus come in powder form?
Yes. Now, I really caution when you get the powder form, check your dosage. Normally, for example, we would want to do about 5 to 10 grams or that tablespoon of the astragalus, right? In the powder form, it's concentrated. And I would check your dosage with your TCM practitioner, or there are some sites that I can add to the PDF that you can check what would the equivalent powdered dosage be for that. Now, both the goji berry and astragalus you can do with just bring up 1 or 2 cups of water to a boil, add them for about 7 to 10 minutes, let them boil on their own. Each can stand alone, and drink it as a tea. And that way you'll still get the benefit of the goji berry for the liver and kidneys, and of the astragalus, you're going to go ahead and get that benefit for the kidney and spleen. So everything can be a tea. What's nice about combining these and having this combination is that you're getting a little bit more of we're entering more different your body in different ways. The mung beans are entering through the spleen and stomach. The astragalus is entering through the kidney and spleen, and the goji berries through the liver. So that really will help with that. So I just want to check the liver and kidney. Okay, so other questions as this is doing its thing here? Okay, cool. Now, the next thing that we're going to go ahead and look at is licorice. Licorice root, you can buy it in a tea. You can buy it like they have it in little tea bags, and that would be fine. If you're going to be using the root, what's nice is it hasn't been as processed, and you're going to just we know for a fact from the 2,500 years of pharmaca how this form will work versus the powdered or the tea. When you have this licorice root, you will take about 10 grams, which would be about, probably this size stick, which is about 2-inch sticks. It would be about 3. And you would boil those in water, bring water to a boil and let it steep for 10 minutes with that. And that is remarkable for a sore throat and for lung congestion. If you're coughing with clear to white phlegm, you don't want it yellow or green, because those are the recipes where you need to do the radish and cabbage. But if you're coughing with clear to white phlegm and you have a scratchy sore throat, or you just have a sore throat, or your lungs feel tight, licorice is amazing. After you bring it to a boil and let it boil for the 10 minutes, then let it cool just to warm, not at boiling, but once it's at warm, you can add honey. And the honey is, again, super moistening for the lungs. We've talked about this with that lemon, ginger, and honey recipe. What's nice about licorice is it doesn't generate as much heat as ginger. Ginger can be very hot on the body, and if you have a hot constitution or are grappling with any heat issues, you'll notice I'm stirring this every once in a while. That's just to bring out the broth, to let the broth come out. The green of the mung beans as that's simmering. So the honey combines with the benefit of the licorice to moisten and clear and soften the lungs. Another great way to do that we have is this rock sugar. Rock sugar is different than regular sugar, as we've said before, because it's not as processed, and it is incredibly moistening. If you're using rock sugar instead of honey, you would add about it's about a teaspoon size rock to the cup to 2 cups of boiling water with your licorice, and you would let them cook together for 10 minutes. The effect of the rock sugar is to moisten and clear. So lungs need to be at just the right level of moisture. If they're too dry, they can get the phlegm stuck and it's hard to move. You don't have a productive cough. And if they're too damp, heavy with thick phlegm, then you can't breathe and you're coughing up this very dark phlegm. And that's when they get too hot. So it really needs this perfect microbiome inside your body for the lungs to do their job. It's quite remarkable that they work as well as they do. Questions on licorice alone. It's very sweet when you make it. You'll be shocked at how sweet it is. But you can also do the licorice with honey or the licorice with rock sugar. You wouldn't do rock sugar and honey. It just would be too much.
But I use tea bags. I didn't really use the root licorice like you're using.
Good. And the tea bags are fine. Don't get me wrong. And you're going to hope that the brand that you're using, I know Yogi makes a licorice. There's some other, Tulsi, I think, has a licorice root. It just is the less processed, the more effective that you're going to have it, but you're still going to get an effect. Did you notice a positive effect when you used the tea bag?
I don't know if I was using it therapeutically. I was just using it because I enjoyed it.
Okay, good. Now you know.
It's good. Yeah.
Nice. Okay. All right. Well, then we're going to move on to lotus seed. We have a wonderful little lotus seed recipe. We've met the lotus seed before for one of our beauty broths. I'm going to hold it like here. And we put it with jujubes and the tremella mushroom. You can do it, though, on its own, where you just kind of make a broth. Or a wonderful breakfast is you do millet. Millet is incredibly nourishing. It's a grain that just has such, again, a complex amino acid structure that nourishes the body. It enters and has such a cooling, calming effect. We have the jujubes. So you can have the whole jujubes or you can have them sliced where they come pre-sliced so you don't have to worry about the pit inside. So it's a porridge that you will make. And for the porridge, you're going to take about 4 cups of water, and you can put everything in all at one time. You'll add your water. You'll add, this is for one person, it will be half a cup of millet. If you have 2 people, do a cup of millet or more. You'll adjust accordingly. And you'll add the lotus seed, and it will be 10 lotus seeds. And you'll add the jujubes. And the jujubes, Chinese dates, you would do about a 1/4 cup of the slices or 3 of the whole jujubes, just the way they come. And you're going to bring that to a boil and stir. After it comes to the boil, you will go ahead and turn it down to low immediately and put a lid on it and let it cook for 30 minutes. Make sure to check it because millet can absorb water really quickly sometimes. It depends on your atmosphere. If it's very dry in your home or moist, it actually can affect how the millet cooks. The same with oatmeal and grits or polenta. It really, all of those can be affected by the humidity and also the altitude. So just check and make sure how it looks, and add extra water if you notice it's drying out and there's still quite a bit of cooking time left. You just make sure you do that. Now, the benefits of the jujubes are they reduce liver heat. And liver heat can come from if you're feeling frustrated, anxious, angry. It can also come if your spleen is weak and it's just creating some, the liver and spleen aren't getting along is what they say. They're kind of fighting with each other. And that can lead to heart fire. And heart fire can make it so you have insomnia, you get forgetful, your memory is reduced, the ability of your memory is reduced. And by having the millet with the lotus seed and jujubes, you can, in kind of like, it's this very specific pathway to calm the liver in a way that calms your mind. So really super beneficial. One of the things you can also do is if you just want to do a tea is boil 10 lotus seeds or 10 grams. It's comes to about a gram per lotus seed. Boil that for about 20 minutes and then add 2 teaspoons of honey once it comes down to warm temperature. And you drink the broth. You can eat the seeds also, but you don't have to. They come out as a very nice, nutty texture. Well, not like almost like a roasted chestnut. If you haven't had it before, a little less chewy. So it's just a really delightful texture. That is the wonderful thing there. This recipe is super great for sleep. If you tend to be the kind of person that falls asleep and then wakes up in the night and has a hard time getting back to sleep, especially if you're waking between 1 and 3 in the morning, that liver window, this millet, jujube, and lotus seed is incredible recipe for that type of insomnia. You wake at that time because that heart fire, right? Your brain turns on again. It gets going. You haven't brought the energy back down to your center for the night. And that's where Qigong helps, right? It helps our energy go out in the day and come down and settle at night. And food will help that as well. Really great. So questions about the lotus seed, millet, and jujube, or any one of those particular ingredients.
How often can you eat this, Julie?
Say that one more, a little bit louder, Yvonne.
I'm sorry. How often can you have this?
You could have this every day if you wanted to. I recommend if you're having sleep problems 3 times a week. I would recommend having it for breakfast 3 times a week. And you could have it any time of day. It just tends to be more of a breakfast texture for some people. But there's nothing in here. The one caveat would be, I just wanted to make sure. Yeah, no, you're good to have it pretty regularly. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Oh, okay. Does millet taste more like a porridge, or is it more like a quinoa that's been cooked?
It's more like a porridge, definitely more like a porridge. You know how quinoa has that very grassy flavor to it? Mm-hmm. This is much more like an in-between, like a grits and an oatmeal with a hint of nuttiness. And this is this is kind of what it looks like. So this really fine grain, these tiny little pearls, just super tiny, and they just cook up so beautifully. They just cook up really beautifully. It can be savory or sweet. Like quinoa, it's hard to do. It's sweet. It's kind of funky, but all right. Patty, then Robert.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Can you substitute millet? It's some other grain for millet?
Do you have a problem with millet?
No, but I was just, wondering if.
Yeah. So you can substitute it for that grain's other benefits, and you would still get the benefit. Like I will make for breakfast this morning. I had I had millet this morning. For the other day, I had oatmeal with jujubes and lotus seed. And it will not have as powerful effect on the insomnia, but the jujubes and lotus seed will still help. It's just when you have the 3, it's like a powerhouse. But I almost always for breakfast, very rarely will I not have jujubes and lotus seeds. Very rarely. I'll sometimes substitute. I'm going to talk about lily bulb in a minute. I'll do lily bulbs and goji berries. And then I sometimes will put in star anise and things like that. But at least 3 to 4 times a week, I'm doing the jujube and lotus seed. It just is such a powerhouse.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, Robert.
2 comments.
Yeah.
Well, first, do you eat anything else with that, or is that your whole breakfast?
That will be my whole breakfast. Sometimes, not in the winter, when we hit, as you'll learn in the spring challenge, once we hit spring and summer, I will almost always have something green for breakfast as well. In the winter, it's much too cooling. What I will add is I will add walnuts and black sesame seeds, and I have either a powder with the spring challenge. I'm actually going to give you these little packets of black sesame and walnut powder. They're really remarkable, but But I will always do a nut year round, a nut and a seed that I'll add with my breakfast. Almost always walnuts and black sesame based on what my imbalances are right now. That's what I'm working on. And then because walnuts aren't too hot of a seed or too hot of a nut. And then greens in the summer and spring. I will always add a green. They just are very cooling. So it's just too cooling for the winter.
Okay.
Yeah.
I find that I can't get, having a breakfast that's just mainly a grain is hard on me for some reason.
Yeah.
And greens do seem to help. So that's something I really always include.
That's great. That's okay because
Okay.
remember, look at you guys have that, you can do that online assessment and look at your constitution. So, or your imbalance. If you have any heat going on, right? If you have, heart fire or, too much heat in the liver or spleen or any of that, adding greens is perfect. It's great. So definitely go ahead and do it. Now, I could be adding broccoli, cauliflower. Sometimes I will do a squash. I love adding sweet potato, acorn squash, butternut squash. I will often steam those on top. So like I've got my little, you've seen this before, right? I have my little steamer pot here, and up top, this has the holes on the bottom, and up top I'll put my squash. Or I'll put Chinese yam, taro, a lot of other different root veggies for the winter. That's what I'll add for as well. So,
and this is my other comment, and this is probably not something you would recommend, but this is something I tried over New Year's. I made this fake cornbread with millet flour as a substitute, and it was really good.
That sounds amazing.
It had millet flour and sweet potato, and it was supposed to use buttermilk, but I substituted some nut milk.
Nice.
And anyway, it was really good.
And you know what? One thing that's really important in Chinese medicine food, it is important to eat things that are pleasing. If you ate processed food every meal, every day, finely ground flour and, soup, food, things that didn't look like food, then that would be a problem. But if you're having processed food, 3 or 4 times a week, and that brings you so much joy, then that's really great. That joy is so important with our digestion. And if we're eating, like yesterday, these weren't so joyful because the sugar was too strong, but we experimented and we made some spelt flour chocolate chip cookies, and the recipe was just way too sweet, so we can't eat them. But it was really fun to make them and to try, and now we'll know don't use any sugar. But all right, great. Any other questions before we move on to our next little thing? All right, cool. We're going to go ahead now and do lily bulb. This is another powerhouse food. Oh my gosh, it's just incredible. You can buy it in packages dried. It's one of the ingredients that was on the list. And it is just great to add in those breakfasts. You can add it in the breakfast. It's also wonderful to cook with rice or glutinous rice. Glutinous rice, it has it's a little bit more processed and easier to digest. But you'll literally just cook the rice like you do, and you'll add the lily bulb, whether it's in your rice cooker or you're boiling the rice. You're going to go ahead and just add that to that. And what is so remarkable about the lily bulb is that it also enters the lung. If you've been coughing, if you have asthma, if you have felt short of breath, that you haven't been able, as we do those deep abdominal breaths all the time, it's really amazing to add that. And it fights fatigue, where you get tired and you crash and you burn. And the reason that happens is when we cannot breathe deeply and take really good nourishing breaths, then we do not get enough of our qi into our body. Because remember, qi comes from food, air, and congenital qi with which we're born. And if we're not getting enough of air our airway is clogged, then we're going to be fatigued because we don't have enough chi to make blood. The blood isn't flowing, our chi isn't flowing, we get fatigued, we have boom, 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 right? Like everything trickles out from that one problem. So keeping your lungs clear is super important, and lily bulb is a great one to do that. And you would just literally make your rice like you make a normal rice recipe. I would add extra water though to make it more of a porridge and cook it longer. So instead of just cooking the rice for 20 to 30 minutes, cook it almost an hour, starting with 4 cups of water and adding water as needed to let it be a nice rice porridge. And the lily bulb cooks the entire time with it, and that makes it just super nourishing. So questions about the lily bulb and rice for asthma, coughing, lung, and it's not for phlegm in the lungs though. So if you've got phlegm, we have the other recipes that we talked about, but if you have the just can't get a deep breath, that constriction, that's what the lily bulb and rice is for. So questions about that? Yeah, Robert, great.
What does the lily bulb taste like?
Oh my gosh. Okay, so lily bulb is, how jicama has a hint of flavor, but is like a super subtle kind of thing? Have you ever had jicama?
Yeah.
Okay, so, and yucca, right? So it's almost like yucca or plantain in terms of yucca, like just that hint of a flavor, but not much flavor, right? It just is this almost floral, but not quite floral, nutty, but not quite nutty, where it just is on your palate. It just sits on your palate where you're like, oh, that was nice. But you can't really say it tastes like this. So it's a very mild, mellow flavor with hints and overtones of nuts and floral, but not like flowery. It's not like hibiscus or lavender or chamomile. It's just this lingering after. Now, lily, you can do the lily flowers, which is that we'll do that another time. Other questions?
Okay.
Yeah.
Julie,
Yeah.
would you be able to add the lily flowers to the millet?
Yes,
also, or would that be
perfect. I do. So I will do, that's the thing with all of these ingredients. You can experiment with all of them. I just want to remember just the contraindication, the one with the astragalus for, if you're hot constitution or you're getting a flu, don't do the astragalus. And then, I forgot with the licorice. If you have edema, don't do the licorice root. If you're in the current episode of edema, because it can raise your blood pressure. If it's edema with licorice, can maybe lead to high blood pressure. So, and I'll have these printed for you. And then the other one. So what I love, I will do that. I will add lily bulb one day, lotus seed the next day, juju beads, goji berries, and then I'll even put them in lunch. And we're almost ready to add the goji berries to our mung bean and astragalus. That's a great question, Yvonne. So other questions?
Can you substitute, jujubes are not on the grocery store and shelf in Eastern North Carolina a lot.
Oh, wait. So say that. Okay. So, jujubes you can get, I think, on Amazon, they have them and they'll last you forever. Even, if you're using them like I do, I go through jujubes all the time. But you can get them all on Amazon. There's another website also, but I find them to be more expensive, called Yamibuy, Yamibuye. But I always find their prices just so much more expensive than Amazon. Oh, and eBay. Believe it or not, you can find a lot of these on eBay. So the other substitutions in a Western substitution, for these foods, I gave you, in the previous remedies, we had the ginger, the scallion, the lemon, the honey, things that pear, radish, things that you see more commonly, but there sometimes just are not substitutions. These recipes have been tested and tried for so long, but the good news is because they're all dried, they last forever. They literally will last you and when you start cooking this way, you're going to find you like it, and they really won't last you. But is that something you feel comfortable doing, Patty, ordering through Amazon?
Oh yeah, I'm very familiar with the UPS man. Yeah.
I meant food. I'm sure I didn't. I know that sounded silly. I'm so sorry. I meant like food through Amazon. Okay.
Everything. Yeah.
Don't we all love our UPS and our postal workers? I'm like, oh my gosh. I gave them presents this year, and the post office, they wouldn't take it. They're not allowed.
Yeah.
They couldn't take a present. So I was like, oh, I felt so badly. But and okay, so I'm going to go ahead and serve up the mung beans and goji berries so you can see it definitely would need to cook, ideally a little bit longer, but I'm going to just show you what the broth looks like. And this mung bean broth is an incredible recipe for beauty. It makes you look so beautiful. Your skin is gorgeous, and it's just really, really wonderful broth for that. If you just do boiled mung beans and then drink the broth, it's just really nice. Okay. Is this stuff that's helpful that you guys like? Is this kind of cool and good to learn some of these things?
Very much so.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah.
Then
Thank you. And
I will. Huh?
I'm sorry. Would you just then drink the broth, or would you eat the beans also?
So if this cooked longer, you would let it cook for like another 20 minutes or so. You would eat it. You would eat like a soup. You would do the mung beans and the goji berries. And here, I don't think I can tip it without it spilling over. But you get, here we go. I can show you the little mung beans at the bottom, and the astragalus root is floating in there. And you would eat them. You would eat it all. So, and you can make this with rice also. What I would do, 1/2 cup of mung beans and 1/4 cup of rice is what I would do. Oh my gosh. Yeah, well, I have another recipe that we'll save for another time. There's so many. It's like there's so much that you can do. So today, just to summarize the things that we looked at, we went ahead and we looked at helping our spleen and digestion with this astragalus, mung bean, and goji berry recipe. So really making sure that we're supporting that, as well as helping our eyes and the liver and kidney with our eyes. So that was this first recipe here. Then we're looking at, and let me kind of show you how this millet, the millet just definitely it just takes longer, so that's not going to be ready. But when we look at the millet, jujube, and lotus seed recipe, we're looking at calming your mind during the day, but especially for insomnia, to help you sleep through the night. And remember, with all food remedies, it's not like taking a medication in the West. These things heal your body over time. So it's not like, oh, I'm going to make this tonight and sleep better tomorrow. I'm going to be making this and preparing it and eating it for a while. And then over a couple of weeks, some people it might be longer. When you combine it with Qigong and acupuncture and other things, it'll be faster. But you will notice, wow, I'm sleeping through the night now. That's great. That's amazing. So that's what that one is for. And if you're slight imbalance, you could be sleeping better that night. But I just want you to be mindful. It takes time. Then our licorice for that sore throat, for that cough, with the honey and the rock sugar to moisten our lungs and nourish our lungs. And then lastly, the lotus bulb and rice also to nourish the lungs, to prevent asthma and treat any of the imbalance that's going on there. All right, so any last questions before we? So Linda, then Patty is how I sound. Okay.
The thing with the millet, the porridge stuff, for sleep, but you eat that in the morning though, don't you?
Correct, because remember, it's not like an effect. It doesn't like you eat it and you get sleepy. You eat it and you're
Okay, got it. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, great question. Really, and I realized I need to say that because these are not like A, B. Now, the licorice root is sore throat, boom, that should help you immediately. Some of these other things and the coughing remedies, those should help you pretty quickly. Those are more immediate effect. But the things like insomnia and the eyes, those are going to be a longer term effect. But coughing and wheezy and sore throat, those will be pretty immediate.
Okay.
Okay,
Thanks.
Patty. And then Yvonne. Yeah.
What kind of rice did you recommend? I think you did one time.
So the ideal recommended is called glutinous rice. And glutinous rice just means that it's going to be a little bit more sticky. The sugars, it's going to have a little bit more of the sugars. And the recipe, your body can absorb it easier. So glutinous rice is ideal. I personally don't like the glutinous rice. It can be a little heavy for me and a little sticky. So I use jasmine. I use jasmine rice. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yvonne.
Is this like the recipe that you gave us for the ginger, the lemon, ginger, lemon, yes, and then
Yes.
honey, that you only use that day, or can you, is that true of most of these recipes? Or can you
Great
save
question.
it?
Yeah, really great question. Everything you can make frequently as needed. I mean, the lily bulb, you can do that frequently, right? The only one I would say to use symptomatically would be the licorice root. You can drink licorice root all the time. It's totally fine if you don't have the contraindication. I just want to make sure, I'm reading these because contraindications are so important. So I just want to make sure. That's the edema. The licorice root would be, if you have edema, don't do the licorice root. So you can have all of these anytime. And when you have a sore throat, make sure you have licorice. Yeah.
Right. But I can then make the millet one day, refrigerate it, and eat it the next day?
Sure,
Or-
absolutely.
okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. Again, just a reminder, in Chinese medicine, it's always better if you don't have to refrigerate your food and reheat it. I do. That's just kind of our lifestyle here in the West. I try not to, but sometimes I do. So if you can make fresh, fresh is always better.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.